Hello, everybody. This is Amanda Elo'esh, your quicker waker upper, and you are tuned in to Inalienable Sovereignty Conversations for Elevation. And I am so pleased to have Vanessa Nixon with me today. She is an herbal goddess, and I'll let her share a little bit more about herself right now. Welcome, Vanessa.
Oh, thank you, Amanda. I'm so delighted to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And I will just say that I have been in a couple of her classes for making elderberry syrup, which my partner's kids are so excited when they get some of that. It helps them when they're not feeling well. And I've enjoyed it. And I made the rose honey. Really
Ooh,
good. Really yummy. Could you tell us just a little bit more about who you are and what you do in the world?
absolutely. Thank you. And yes, I'm so thrilled that you were able to make those classes. They were so much fun.
Yeah.
I am a traditional naturopath. I use modalities like herbalism and homeopathy and nutrition and some energy work. And I really like to focus my work on um, women who are in midlife and who are navigating some of those shifts and changes that we all do at that time. And one of the reasons that I really love working with women in this phase of life is because I feel like there's so much potential and it's such a powerful time for us to really step into our authentic selves, to step into our power, to bring our gifts out into the world and do what we were here to do.
Oh.
And it's time, it's it's time for us to just do it.
Absolutely. And I love that you're doing that. I certainly have benefited myself. And I'm curious what the term inalienable sovereignty means for you.
That's a great question. I think there are a lot of different things that go into it, but I think basically for me, it kind of goes back to that ability to be authentically who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I, in the culture that we grew up in, or that I grew up in, um, that was not something that I was necessarily encouraged to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I have had my own journey through being a people pleaser and taking care of everybody else, um, and this is actually, goes into why I do the work that I do. Is I had my own journey coming into this midlife phase of realizing that I wasn't being true to myself.
Mm.
Um, I wasn't allowing myself to shine authentically. I wasn't comfortable being visible in all of the aspects of myself
Mm.
and sharing my voice and speaking my truth. And so all of that, kind of um, is woven into, you know, sovereignty for me,
Yeah.
um, and in just being able to feel confident
Yeah.
in who I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that midlife can it can really it's got a lot of stigma around it for sure. And had several friends who were going through it and it seemed I don't know, it seemed like a rough ride, a rough ride. I've been grateful that it's not really it's been a simpler process for me, but I know that there can be a lot of stigma and when I first was going into menopause, I thought I was pregnant. And I was certain I was. And once I realized like, oh no, this is the beginning of that. I'm like, oh, my womb is now able to, because I manifested a lot around that time, and I thought it was because there was this powerful, this life in my body, and and I was like, oh, my womb is this really powerful, not that I didn't know, but it's this powerful, miraculous source of so much power. And so I got really excited about that, and I know that some women recognize that, and some women, it can be a really challenging time. And I'm curious because it sounds like you work with a lot of women around this, and what are some of the struggles that disempower, and maybe share a little bit about how you support them in turning that narrative around.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question, and I love hearing that you were able to be so in touch with, what was going on in your body, that as soon as you realized, oh, I'm not pregnant, I'm going into menopause, that you connected that to that creative energy. And I think that's a good place to start, because a lot of women really have mixed feelings about going into menopause. And I think that there are a lot of reasons why. Um, but in our culture, we are conditioned to think that once we hit a certain age, we're no longer valuable. Our culture values our reproductive ability. And once we can no longer reproduce human beings, we get that message that our value is diminished. And whether we consciously believe that or not, we absorb
Mhm.
these messages from our culture. And a lot of women really dread menopause, also, not only for that reason, but because it's not really talked about. It's
Mhm.
kind of a taboo subject still. We don't have conversations about menopause. Most girls don't hear from their mothers or grandmothers what menopause is like, or what to expect, um, or that it is, in many cultures, a very revered time.
Yeah.
You know, many cultures believe that it's only when a woman hits menopause, or is, in that phase of post menopause, that she really comes into her gifts in a powerful way. Um, and and that's when she is the most magical.
Yeah.
And I think from what I have studied about some of these cultures, is it's because of just what you named earlier, that creative life force that used to go into the possibility of becoming pregnant and birthing a child into the world. Now that creative life force can be harnessed to bring whatever it is you want to manifest into the world. It can birth creative projects, it can birth new businesses, it can birth, new communities. And we still have that energy. It's just directed in another way. And because we're not bleeding every month, some people believe that um, enables us to keep our power,
Mhm.
and that we're even more powerful. But in our culture, it takes a little reframing of our mindset, and that's one of the things that I do work with women around, is um, just naming, what are the misconceptions that you might have had, what are the feelings that you have around this time of life, and how can we reframe that?
Yeah.
How can we see, you know, what has been conditioned to us and what is actually going on? There's a big, what I see a lot is this myth or this misconception that menopause equals death.
Mm.
And that sounds like really intense, like, really? People think that? But I think part of it is an ancestral memory, because just 2 centuries ago, the average life expectancy of a woman in the United States was only about 35 years old.
Wow.
And so, uh, many women did not get to live past menopause
Mm.
or even to menopause.
Oh.
So I think we have this collective memory of menopause. If you reached it, you were kind of at death's doorstep. You had lived a
Mm.
long life. And so I think, unweaving some of these things is really important to us. And another piece there is that menopause is actually a death in a way. It is the death of the reproductive years.
Yeah.
So I think that being able to acknowledge that and um, grieve for that, if that's something that um, feel if you feel that loss, um, depending on where you are in your life and what your plans were, you may have wanted to have a child or more children.
Yeah.
And that can be, it's something that we need to look at, and we need to allow ourselves that grieving process so
Absolutely.
that then we can get to the celebration
Yeah.
that many women are already there. They're like, I am so ready. I don't want to have to worry about an unwanted pregnancy. I don't want to have to worry. I'm just really glad that I'm done with, monthly periods. And, there are many advantages. And I think it's important to just look at where you are in that process and what you need to move forward in a really healthy way so that you can celebrate the wise woman years.
Yeah.
You can look back on all the wisdom you gained and all the experience that you had, and be able to step into your power, knowing that you are a wise woman, that
Absolutely.
you have inner wisdom, that you now have a greater ability to access.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And while you were talking, I was just thinking, I mean, one thing that's come up for me quite a bit is that with the annihilation of indigenous peoples, and then, our, indigenous lands and practices, we have really lost rites of passage.
Hmm.
And, for all spans of all milestones in life, and that lack of rites of passage and honoring these different powerful moments in our life where we're transitioning from one phase to another, from child to young adult, from, all these things. I think that lack is one of the things that makes us feel so lost, disconnected, judging those transitions. And we're not being celebrated by and with the community. And so I think it's beautiful that you're doing this, and I'm realizing that's probably why there are so many men's circles and women's circles, and it's because we're trying to create that for ourselves, to share the wisdom, to bring that support in. And I'm curious, in all of the herbal things do you provide rituals? You said you do energy work. How do you support women who are maybe struggling with it?
Yeah, I think that ritual is really important, and I'm glad that you brought that up. I too also believe that because our culture doesn't celebrate rites of passages, it does really leave us feeling alone in what we're going through, whatever stage of life we're in. Um, and I think that community is so important for women in general. Just, as women, we want to connect. We have that innate need to be connected to other people and to support other people, um, and receive support. And so community is definitely one of the things that I help women to create, whether, in their own life, or if they want to, connect to my community. Um, that is something that I think is critical for women, to feel connected, especially to other women.
Yeah.
Um, And ritual is something that I use not only in the broader sense of, um, you know, like we might think of creating a ceremony or ritual, but I like to bring it into daily life,
Hmm.
especially for women in midlife who are trying to make change in their lives so that they feel happier, so that they bring in what they really are desiring.
Hmm.
Because I think that ritual is, we always talk about habits. We need to create good habits. Um, but if we can make another little mind shift around that, and instead of trying to build good habits, if we can build in really nurturing, lovely, nourishing rituals throughout our day,
Hmm.
then we end up, waking up in the morning and looking forward to all of these healthy, wonderful changes that we have instituted in our lives. And so that's a really key piece that I do in my work is
Yeah.
to ritualize
Hmm.
um, the things that we want in our daily lives. In any moment, you can create a ritual.
Beautiful. I love that you said that because I'm just starting a campaign of weekly putting out a little tip of, how to bring more sacred into your life and more intentionality. And I know that, probably in the circles that we're in, the word ritual feels very natural and juicy. And I know for some people, the word ritual has been so stigmatized, just like so many other things, right? To disconnect us from our power. Um, but working with elements, working with intentionality, right? I'm bringing my presence into working with this morning beverage, or how I do my self-care, the herbs that I put together to take care of my health today. It's really about bringing our own mindfulness and presence into it, honoring all the elements that we're working with, right? And not just mindlessly, applying or ingesting, but to really bring some presence and gratitude, and inviting everything that's greater than us, that wishes us well, into our daily lives in these little beautiful ways. It's so helpful. There's not anything, I was gonna say witchy, because because that's a stigmatized word, but I'm sure that there's plenty of what I do that other people can call witchy, but no, nothing like casting negative spells or working with weird,
Right.
funky energies. Like, it's really about cultivating positive energies in all that we do and all that we work with. And curious, what, have you, or do you prescribe rituals with the herbs that you teach people about?
I do work a lot with herbs, and I think that especially with rituals, it's really important that they be personalized.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily prescribe
Mhm.
um, anything for ritual work other than what you are drawn to, what is aligned with you, and what feels good to you. If we're working with, some symptoms or some issues that I, feel certain herbs would be helpful for, of course, I'm going to recommend some herbal regimens or protocols. But the rituals that I create with women around these things that they want to bring in to be healthier and to be able to navigate this time with more joy and more ease, they're all personalized
Yeah.
to the individual woman, and they can include, I definitely recommend that they include elements of nature, whether it's, stones and crystals or herbs or, other plants, or, um, just, whatever is around them in nature that brings them the kind of energy that they want more of. Um, then we just personalize it to their unique situation. Um, music, bringing music into it, bringing movement. You know, one of the things that I am really, really passionate about and that I love working with women around is natural movement.
Hmm.
And I've been a professional belly dance instructor for decades now. And one of the reasons I love that particular movement is because it was created for a woman's body,
Yes.
for how her body naturally moves. And whether it's belly dance or whether it's yoga or whether it's just walking or Tai Chi or, whatever it is, moving is such a great way to clear out stagnant
Yes.
energy
Um,
and also to allow space to bring in the new energy. So when we're talking about rituals and bringing in energy and um, instituting things in our daily lives that are going to make us healthier, movement is so key.
mm,
And doing it in a way that feels good to you, that brings you joy, and not feeling like, oh, I've got to run 2 miles today, or oh, I've got to go work out at the gym. And if you love those things are great. But if you don't, find something that brings you joy, that you really, really love doing,
mhm.
that moves your body so that you can clear out that energy and make space for new energy to come in.
I love that. Yeah, movement is a big one for me. I used to be a belly dancer. I belly danced for many years in my 20s, and it
Mhm.
definitely finds its way into my natural movement now. I like to be more free form and not
Uh-huh.
performative because I
Yes.
do my movement is all about what does my body want, so that's really amazing. And I actually one of the herbs that I work with to support my movement is cannabis, which
Mhm.
really helps me to be more aware of all of the subtle energies going on in and around my field that may have gotten funky and blocked. And just recently learned about the endocannabinoid system, that it's like the nervous system, like the reproductive system. It's the system in our body that helps to release anandamide, which is the bliss molecule that drinking like ceremonial cacao also releases in our system. And when I have the time to ingest cannabis and go into, it's always like there's always going to be some movement and just loving up my body, like I end up touching myself and like, oh, look, there's some tightness here. And I just become so aware of things that, I'm not in my body. So, like I said, subtle things that need attention and love that didn't get it before. Are there other herbs that you know? Are you familiar with the endocannabinoid system? Is that familiar?
I'm somewhat familiar with it, yes. And while cannabis is not necessarily an herb that I use a lot, um, I mainly focus on herbs that are naturalized or indigenous to my area.
Hmm.
And so, I work with a lot of plants that most people would consider weeds, like
Hmm.
dandelion and plantain and burdock and yellow dock and nettles. And nettles has always been one of my closest plant allies.
Hmm. Oh.
It's got so many different uses, but I find specifically for women in midlife, it is, I would say it's one of the herbs that I recommend at least 75% of the time for
Mm.
women. And one of the reasons is because it's it's an adrenal adaptogen.
Oh, beautiful.
The leaf is what is normally used, and it's great for the liver and the adrenals. But the seed, which most people don't use, the nettle seed, is specific for kidneys and adrenals.
Oh, nice.
And one of the reasons that this is so appropriate for women in midlife is because as our estrogen levels are dropping and our ovaries are producing less and less estrogen, our adrenals are producing estrogen. We don't stop producing estrogen altogether. Our adrenals take over that function.
Mm.
Our adrenals are also um, they are also producing cortisol and stress. And so when we have all of these changes going on in our lives, we have a lot more stress.
Mm.
So we have a lot more cortisol. And then our adrenals are also trying to, produce the estrogen. So they can become fatigued and we can feel, very overwhelmed and overloaded. And so we really need to love our adrenals up, and Nettle can do that really exceptionally well.
So great. You read my mind because I was going to say, is there something, I know that it sounds like you work with people individually and, give them kind of some specific wisdom about what can support their individual circumstances. But I was going to say, is there something kind of overarching that you find is a really helpful? And it sounds like nettles in general, but the nettle seed is really particularly beneficial. Is that easy to find?
The nettle seed is not as easy to find as the nettle leaf,
Yeah.
and nettle leaf is great. It will work really well. But I harvest my own nettle seed. In fact, I just did about a week ago. I went out and I found a wonderful patch of nettle seed, and the biggest harvest that I've ever had of nettle seed. So that's one of the reasons it's on my mind today. And but yes, if you can find nettle seed, usually um, you'll find it in a tincture form.
Okay.
But you can actually just use the seeds if you are in a place where nettles grow. Um, fall is the time to be harvesting the nettle seeds,
Time.
and you can just use it sprinkle it on your food.
Oh,
It
okay.
won't change the flavor. You can sprinkle it on salads, on granola or yogurt or in your soups. Um, and, just a small amount
Yeah.
can go a really long
Oh,
way.
okay. That's so great to know. And how about like I used to go on a hike where there was a lot of nettles and I would just, because they're really stingy. And I
Yes.
just would instinctively just gently, pick a leaf and then just eat the leaf plain. Is there anything beneficial about that or was I just being weird?
No, no. Eating nettles fresh, like usually in the spring, I will harvest nettles when they first start coming up and
Yeah.
they're maybe 6 to 12 inches tall and they're more tender and juicy that way. And they can be harvested, with gloves. If you're going to go out and harvest, it's a good idea to wear gloves. But as soon as the nettles dry, the sting goes away, or as soon as they're wilted. So if you want to use them fresh, you can use them um, any way you would like saute spinach or any other green. So, if you saute greens with garlic and onions, you could use your nettles that way, or you could
Oh,
use it in
nice.
soup. But yeah, I know a lot of people, not a lot of people, I know some people who will go out and harvest the nettles. And the thing about the nettles is the little hairs that sting you are on the bottom of the leaf and the stem. So if you just touch the top and kind of roll it over, then you won't get the
Exactly.
sting.
Exactly. That's what I was doing. And I just thought if I do it often enough, then they won't, maybe I'll build up immunity to it.
Well, one of the things that it's the I believe it's the ursolic acid that is injected into you from the little hairs that that produces the stinging feeling, and that is actually found to be good for arthritis.
Oh,
So
perfect.
any kind of bursitis or arthritis or rheumatitis. So people actually do like self-flagellate
Yes.
with
Yes.
nettles
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
for the relief from
Oh,
arthritis.
so great. So helpful. I feel like the half an hour has just sped on by. I feel like we could continue, and people can continue with you because you teach classes, and I know you have a 4-day coming up that I just sent out to my people to invite to. If you could share a little bit about what's coming up, how people can stay connected and continue to learn and benefit from your wisdom and offerings.
Thank you. Yes, I am co-creating a summit with my colleague Vivian Monroe, and the
She was
summit
on
is
here.
called Becoming the Matriarch, Women's Initiation into the Magical Power of Midlife.
Oh,
So just what we've been talking about, and the registration is live right now. Registration just opened yesterday, becomingthematriarch.com. And the summit itself happens from October 18th to the 21st. October 18th just happens to be World Menopause Day,
oh wow.
and that's the day we open the summit.
Okay.
And we have over 2 dozen fabulous women speakers who are talking about all aspects of health and wealth and relationships and embodiment and spirituality and how that all pertains to stepping into our role as matriarch
Beautiful.
as we navigate midlife. And then next month, I have something really special coming up, and that is that my first book is going to be published on my 52nd birthday
Congratulations.
in
That's
November.
beautiful.
And the book is called Menomorphosis, and
Ooh,
it's all about the transformation of the menopausal journey.
that's amazing. I can tell that's gonna change a lot of people's game in the
Oh,
menopause
thank you.
phase. Beautiful. And so is there a website that people can get on a mailing list for you?
Absolutely. My website is herbsofgracehealingarts.com. And
Herbsofgracehealingarts.com.
yes, and from there you can learn more about my natural health offerings and my natural movement offerings. And one thing we didn't talk about is my natural beauty offerings. I have a line of natural cosmetics as well that I've created. So all of those you can find at Herbs of Grace Healing Arts.
Nice. Now I know where to go when things start to run out in my little supply. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share this really helpful wisdom with us today, Vanessa. I'm definitely a fan. We'll continue to tune in to what you offer. And to everybody who's tuning in, we're here every week. Uh, this is Inalienable Sovereignty. And until we get to connect again, may the source be with you.